When the leaders of the NAR introduced the Seven Mountain Mandate theology, many of the doctrines associated with that theology linked the so-called mountains to Revelation 17, verse 9 and 10 from the New Testament. Leading up to the verses in question, the symbolic text described a harlot having had sex with the kings of the earth, and she rode a beast with 7 heads. In the King James translation of the prophecy, the vision was interpreted such that the 7 heads were symbolically described as 7 mountains. According to Revelation 17, verse 5, the name of this great harlot was a mystery. Upon her forehead was written the words, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, and of the abominations of the earth. In C. Peter Wagner's interpretation of this passage, the heads of the beast were part of the so-called global network of Satan's kingdom on earth, and ancient kings of various kingdoms had slept with the great harlot or other harlots of the same network. When preaching the Seven Mountain Mandate doctrine, leaders of the NAR also include Genesis 1 verse 28 as a so-called mandate. After having created Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, Genesis describes God instructing the mother and father of humanity to have sex and multiply the human species. In verse 28, God instructs the 2 humans to replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Because the word dominion is used, NAR leaders claim that elite Christians should subdue other humans in the so-called mountains from the passage in Revelation, claiming dominion over them. Critics of the NAR are quick to point out that in the passage from Genesis, the instruction was to subdue the animal kingdom rather than other humans. The so-called mountains of society could not be considered fowl of the air or fish of the sea. According to theologians not sympathetic to the NAR agenda, claiming dominion over a group of humans would be a misinterpretation of Scripture. However, leaders of the NAR reject the skepticism due to one specific phrase within the passage of Genesis 1, which instructs humans to subdue every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Considering the NAR's doctrine surrounding the serpent's DNA, which developed from within Christian identity as the dual seed or serpent seed doctrines, a door is opened that enables the NAR to consider outsiders as another type of living thing that should be subdued and governed by NAR apostles. Where did leaders of the NAR get the idea that the 7 symbolic mountains of Revelation 17 were networks of an enemy invasion on society? How did they come to believe that other humans, including Christians, should be considered other living things? To find out, we must understand how the Christian identity doctrine developed into a theology that was given the code name Mystery Babylon among certain Christian extremists. When C. Peter Wagner wrote to NAR prophet Cindy Jacobs and described the failure of the social gospel due to liberal theology, he described an unusual turn of events in the movement's history. To understand the NAR's connection to Christian identity, it is critical to understand what Wagner meant by that statement. As the social gospel movement progressed and was adopted by Christian leaders who valued social change in the political landscape, strong divisions surfaced along party lines. Political leaders influenced by the social gospel, such as Harold Lloyd Hopkins, a presidential advisor for President Franklin D. Roosevelt, came under fire from Christian identity leaders due to his connection to Roosevelt. Christian identity leaders such as Gerald and Winrod were very outspoken against Roosevelt and believed the president to be part of the so-called Jewish conspiracy outlined in the anti-Semitic protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, which Winrod helped publish and distribute. Winrod's organization, the Defenders of the Christian Faith, was instrumental in spreading both Christian identity and Christian fundamentalism in the United States. Key figures leading to the NAR had close ties to Winrod, including Charles E. Fuller, founder of the Fuller Theological Seminary where Wagner served as the professor of church growth. Winrod's organization was so strongly opposed to President Roosevelt that it began spreading propaganda about the links between the president and the so-called Jewish conspiracy, leading to a rapid decline in morale among troops during World War II. This eventually led to Winrod being named in the Great Sedition Trial of 1944. Winrod was popular among Pentecostal and fundamentalist groups aligned with British Israelism and Christian identity, as well as leaders of later movements such as Latter Rain. Even after being named Jayhawk Nazi for his socialist views and anti-Semitism, Amy Semple McPherson named Winrod as her replacement during times when she was unable to fulfill her duties as pastor of the Angelus Temple. Most notably, Winrod was asked to speak at Angelus Temple the Sunday just days after Kristallnacht, otherwise known as the Night of the Broken Glass, when the American Bund and other pro-Nazi groups praised the arrest of 30,000 Jews and the destruction of hundreds of Jewish homes, businesses, and temples. Winrod strongly influenced other Christian identity leaders such as Wesley Swift, a Klan leader and minister trained at the Angelus School. Swift was instrumental not only in spreading the dual seed doctrine, but also in promoting the Christian identity version of the Mystery Babylon doctrine. Swift's version, which included the so-called Jewish conspiracy and the idea of a silent invasion of government and other social networks, is remarkably similar to the version later introduced by C. Peter Wagner. Swift's version of the Mystery Babylon doctrine included a silent invasion of the United States and other countries by the Kingdom of God and the Kingdom of the World Order, which Swift and Wagner believed to be the army of darkness controlled by Satan and his demons. Much like Wagner would do, Swift claimed that Babylon represented the citadel of Lucifer, and Mystery Babylon included the processes under which the enemies of God's kingdom work, or as Wagner later described it, networks that have been established wherein humans are being manipulated by ancient spirits of evil. Also, like Wagner, Swift claimed that an army of spiritual warriors was being raised up in a great and mighty administration through the numbers of his children he is multiplying in the midst of the earth. Especially among the Christian identity leaders who were ranking members of the Klan, Wesley Swift and others linked the Mystery Babylon anti-Semitic propaganda to similar propaganda against the Roman Catholic Church, painting a picture of a joint invasion by the so-called false Jews described in the protocols of the learned elders of Zion and Catholics. Another frequently used text was the 1850s book The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop. In Hislop's pseudo-history, Noah's son Shem killed Babylonian ruler Nimrod. After his death, Nimrod became a deity in the Babylonian pantheon, and a mystery cult formed around the worship of Nimrod. Hislop claimed that after being forced underground, the cult emerged as the Catholic Church, referencing the same chapter of the Book of Revelation used for the NAR Seven Mountain Mandate doctrine. He claimed the result was a vast network of satanic worship. Both Swift's anti-Semitic views of a mystery Babylonian invasion of the United States and the anti-Catholic themes found in the Two Babylons were widespread throughout the post-World War II healing revival spearheaded by William Branham. William Branham, mentored in theology by the second highest ranking member of the Klan and other white supremacy groups, Reverend Roy E. Davis, used Swift's views to further his own agenda. Not only did Branham repackage Swift's dual seed doctrine for his own serpent seed doctrine, but he also promoted Hislop's Two Babylons as legitimate history. During the climax of the Little Rock 9 event in civil rights history, as Davis and Swift were in Little Rock organizing the protests by white supremacists and rallying for new members of their Klan organizations, Branham released his serpent seed theology, copied from Swift's dual seed theology, claiming it was a brand new divine revelation. In his sermon with that title, Branham incorporated the Mystery Babylon theology and included Hislop's idea that Nimrod was the founder of the Catholic Church. Though he likely first learned the Mystery Babylon theology from either Davis or Swift, Branham convinced converts to the latter rain movement that God had revealed these ideas to him in the form of a vision or other supernatural experience. The themes of demonic conspiracy that Wagner, Swift, and Branham have in common regarding the Mystery Babylon doctrine are also found among other unorthodox religious leaders predating them. The notion of a secret demonic religion can be traced back to 1869 by Gougenot des Museaux, who almost a century before the development of Christian identity suggested that an esoteric cult from the ancient spirits of evil was passed down among the Jews to emerge as the representatives on earth of the spirit of darkness. Mormonism founder Joseph Smith declared in his book, Pearl of Great Price, that Cain entered a covenant with Satan, a secret combination, and their works were in the dark. Like Swift and Branham, Smith claimed that this secret cult survived the Great Flood through the lineage of Ham, a critical part of the Mystery Babylon theology. Though Smith differed from Branham and Swift concerning the dual seed doctrine, the concept was very much the same. Even without the serpent's DNA, Smith created the concept of two bloodlines of humans, one good and one bad, engaged in spiritual warfare throughout time. Smith did link the bad guys to what Christian identity would call the curse of black skin, but did so through the notion of a secret society of evil humans being manipulated by demonic forces within Satan's network. In his book Pearl of Great Price, Smith argues that the biblical Cain was the first person to form a secret society, an organization founded anciently by Satan, with Cain, periodically renewed in ancient times by satanic revelation, internally protected by covenants of the blackest sorcery, and established for the express purpose of murder and plunder. The secret society version of the Mystery Babylon theology, as it exists in both the NAR and Christian identity, has been the core doctrine used by many extremist groups and domestic terrorists for decades. Wesley Swift went on to organize the virulently anti-Semitic Christian Defense League in 1962, where Aryan Nations founder Richard Butler served as national director. Butler became ordained as a Christian identity leader through a theological correspondence course, and the Aryan Nations adopted the Mystery Babylon theology. By 1977, Butler had decided to form the Church of Jesus Christ Christian, named after Swift's church, and officially named the political arm of the church Aryan Nations. The group has been linked to numerous violent crimes and killings, and nearly disbanded when they were indicted by a grand jury in Fort Smith on sedition charges as godfathers of a conspiracy hatched at the 1983 Aryan World Congress. While one might mistakenly assume that the leaders of the New Apostolic Reformation do not advocate violence or terrorism when presenting doctrines in common with these extremist groups, the many historical links suggest a pattern of destructive theology that breeds extremism. For example, researchers have found links between the NAR and the riots at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. On January 5, NAR Apostle Cheon, one of C. Peter Wagner's most dedicated students and most successful heirs, spoke to the crowds who would perpetrate the Capitol riot. At the same time, due to the weaponization of religion for political influence, many members of the NAR have been convinced that the insurrection was nothing more than a propaganda device by those in Satan's network, in the so-called mountain of government and the news media. This idea appears to come directly from NAR apostles and prophets, whose failed predictions over the outcome of the 2020 presidential election left them exposed as frauds. Why did the NAR decide to adopt doctrines that are commonly found among domestic terrorist organizations? How are NAR apostles and prophets linked to these political agendas? Where did the Mystery Babylon doctrine of Christian identity enter the historical lineage of the NAR? To find out, we must examine another doctrine common between the NAR and Christian identity: the manifest sons of God.